Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. International Nurses Day is observed on Florence Nightingale's birthday, that's May 12th. Now, Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association President Idi Stuart joins us to discuss this year's theme of Our Nurses, Our Future, and more. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Stuart. Sometimes people ask this question as the last thing. I want to throw it to the front, please. After this entire conversation, what do you want us walking away from thinking about nurses on International Nurses Day and every day?
Wow, it's a large question, and I would really want to first thank TDT for having and focusing and emphasizing the role of the nurse and the importance of nurses within the healthcare system. And we really want persons to realize if we have to improve our healthcare system, we must focus on nursing personnel primarily because nursing personnel make up half of all healthcare workers within any health system. So if you really and truly believe our healthcare system needs to improve, you must start at the building blocks, and that is nursing personnel. Yeah.
Now, you say that, and I want to ask about those numbers because I don't know if right now it should be half and it is, or it should be half and it isn't. You have any stats to share with me, Mr. Stewart?
We actually have a lot of statistics. What we are seeing currently is that the healthcare system in Trinidad and Tobago has moved away from how it was supposed to be operating, meaning that we have been building a number of additional facilities, secondary healthcare facilities, hospitals to be specific, where we don't have the full complement of healthcare workers, and more so, we don't have the full complement of nursing personnel who ought to really make up 50% of all of those healthcare workers. So we have a serious deficit in the number of nursing personnel to operate our existing hospitals that we have spent billions to manufacture, to produce. And then we also don't have nursing personnel, neither enough general nursing personnel or specialist nursing personnel to be able to take care of the new hospitals that we are building across Trinidad and Tobago. So the bulk of those healthcare facilities that are being built would either remain empty or be operating way below their functioning capabilities.
And that is something that we want to get back into in a little bit. And I really like the fact that you keep on talking about the healthcare system, looking at it as a system and looking and seeing the role that nurses and nursing personnel play in that system. But I want to ask, though, about the lessons from the pandemic, because we've seen some of these structures, these buildings being opened during the pandemic, used for different things during the pandemic. What are some of those lessons from the pandemic that are applied to nursing, possibly from a policy level of the system that nurses are operating?
Well, this pandemic has taught us so much, has really opened our eyes and hopefully opened the minds of policymakers, both within nursing and external to nursing. Some of those policy lessons are that you should always have an emphasis on keeping persons healthy. That's, if no other lesson we have learned, is that we have failed as a healthcare system, as a country, to keep our citizens healthy. Those persons who would have unfortunately and sadly passed away during the pandemic, both locally and abroad, there were similarities throughout all of them. And one, you had the elderly, they were more prone. Those who had issues where their immune system is compromised, those were in high numbers. But more importantly, and this is the area we could really focus on, is those with non-communicable diseases, those persons who have hypertension, diabetes, all of these lifestyle diseases, which can be controlled, which WHO is recommending countries place the emphasis on instead of building new facilities.
We'll take a short break. We'll come back with more. Stay with us. And welcome back. We are speaking with President of the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, Idi Stuart. And just before we took that break, Mr. Stuart, you were speaking about lessons that we would have learned during the pandemic. And I like the fact that you spoke both of lessons among policymakers inside and outside of nursing personnel. And how do we keep ourselves healthy, and who will guard the guards? I like the fact that you are a registered mental nurse and oncology nurse, Mr. Stuart, because I want to ask about the role of mental health, especially in these caregivers who are going out every day looking and seeking individuals' best interest, but sometimes it's a case of the shoemaker he doesn't have good shoes. So what is the state? What is the state of the association mentally within and personnel within that association?
Well, in Trinidad and Tobago, we suffer from a deficit in research. So statistics is difficult to come by, and that is something the association is trying to change internally to really get some of these statistics, how this pandemic has affected nurses psychologically and even physically in Trinidad and Tobago. We would have gotten feedback from our members from time upon time, but to have specific statistics. However, I actually just came out of a webinar led by WHO and the European nurses in Europe. And what they are saying, when they did their survey following the pandemic and even during the pandemic, when they interviewed, and this was a quite significant large survey over crossing multiple European countries, they were saying when they interviewed persons, over 40% of nursing personnel has indicated that they were exiting the profession because of the burden and the stressors that has been placed on them during the pandemic. They are looking for alternative means of employment. They had enough and they were on their way out. So, and if we were to transpose that data into our situation in Trinidad and Tobago, that is indeed a worrying sign. What we also have in Trinidad and Tobago is the exodus of nursing personnel leaving our shores. So in addition to those who are leaving the professions to take up duties elsewhere, but there are a number of the average nurse is qualified to go and do medicine, to go and do dentist, veterinarian. The average nurse is qualified to go and do those things, those courses. So we're seeing an exodus of nursing personnel into those fields, even insurance, health insurance. We're seeing nurses leaving to go there, but we're also seeing nurses who want to remain in the field, but at least be compensated adequately to live a basic middle-class lifestyle. And they are taking the numerous opportunities that are abroad. So all of that is playing into a situation which we foresee in the not too distant future, where it will bring great strain on the healthcare system and also a depreciation, an unwanted depreciation of healthcare to our citizens, unfortunately.
And what are some of those factors leading to that, Mr. Stuart? And I ask some of the factors because it is easier for someone, I can imagine someone who doesn't have chick, don't have child, to take themselves and move. I know there's some spaces that make it easier. Yes, man, bring your family because we want you and we need your skill set. So what are some of those things that can be used to mitigate that drain, that level of people saying, okay, well, it might be a piece of pressure, but I'm moving or we're moving. What are some of those things that we can do here on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago to deal with that?
Yes. Well, there are motivating factors and there are hygiene factors. The hygiene factors are just the basic minimum that should be in place to not make the healthcare worker demotivated. And then you have the motivating factors that will really encourage persons to really strive to their best and true potential. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we are not doing either. We're not focusing on the hygiene factors and we're not focusing on the motivating factors. Some of those hygiene factors that really have been communicated to us by nursing personnel is, the average nurse would want to own a house in Trinidad and Tobago. I think every citizen would want to have that security of shelter. Nursing personnel, shockingly, unlike other categories of public servants like police, fire, army, they have an allotment of HEC housing stock. Nursing personnel are not afforded that. And even when you go on the open market, a nurse's salary, even husband and wife, both nursing personnel cannot afford a house on the open market. So it's extremely difficult. Something as basic as that, a nursing personnel would find quite difficult. And then when you look at the reverse in terms of what is being offered internationally, they are putting you up in housing. You actually have free housing for the first 3 months when you reach up there. And then the agency finds places for you to occupy. We have nurses who would have left 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, 2, 3 years ago, just before the pandemic, and they have already been able to acquire a home in the United States or even in UK, get some sort of subsidized housing. You have situations where, well, I wouldn't even go into the salary. The salary is basic. The salary, while we would not want persons to come into the profession strictly for compensation, one cannot escape that is definitely a factor that persons must consider. Educational levels. Nursing, shockingly, is the only of all the healthcare professionals, whether it's psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, vets, dentists, all of those persons, the minimum entry requirement is a degree. Whereas nurses, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is allowing a practice where they are trying to reduce the educational level of the nurse. And they are actually saying this is really to retard nursing personnel from being picked up by international recruiters, yeah? Because if we bring everyone to the standard of a degree, which currently about 60% of nursing personnel are, if not even more. If we bring everybody that degrees the level, then we'll have more persons migrating. So it's almost like a policy government decision to keep nursing educational levels down. And this has serious effects for the patient. Statistics worldwide have shown nurses who are trained at a degree level, there's better patient outcomes for those patients who are cared for by degree nurses. This is internationally accepted across all spheres of the literature. So there are a number of motivating factors and then some simple things. Nursing is comprised, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, probably 98% females. That means persons of childbearing age. That means you require daycare facilities. That means a nursing personnel work across a 24-hour period. There's not a time when nurses are not on duty. So when you look at how does one manage your family life and then still come to work, and then you have to find a babysitter, a daycare facility for your child, especially if you're a single parent. Most daycares close 4, 5, 6. You have to pay quite a hefty sum if you get daycares going later than that. And then there's very little daycares that open 24/7. And something simple that has been recommended since the Gladys Kufor report, that you should have daycare facilities within hospitals because it is nursing personnel who are there. So something simple as allocating one room in these billion-dollar facilities, just one room with some staff, could reduce some of the demotivating factors for nursing personnel. But what we are seeing is really there's nothing that, unfortunately, the policymakers are implementing to try to motivate or to try to cure the hygiene factors that are negatively affecting nursing personnel.
And yet still we're focusing on the theme, our nurses, our future. And I want you to bring that international theme down to the local level. Because my personal experience with nurses is that sometimes there may not be as many resources as you would like. I don't think anyone ever has as much as they want. But at the same time, just the way in which something can be done, a bedside manner, the way that the sort of energy that the nurse at hand brings to you at that point in time, that can make so much difference. It feels as though it negates some of those other things that are less than ideal. Talk about the significance of nurses with that energy, with that role, with that vibe, please, Mr. Stuart.
Your volume went on a bit, but I believe you were speaking about some of the resources, the constraints of the resources, and that has been a perennial problem within the healthcare system. And it would not resolve anytime soon. There was, during the health sector reform in 1994, health sector reform was a multifaceted policy. However, in Trinidad and Tobago, we only focus on one aspect, which is just breaking up the Ministry of Health service delivery units into these four parts: in Northwest, Southwest Regional Health Authority, Tobago Regional Health Authority. So that is all we did. Broke it up, end up having 5 CEOs, 5 GMs of nursing, 5 GMs of human resource. So all we did is increase the top half of the administrative structure, calling for even more resources. However, we have not focused on all of the other areas to make this health sector reform possible, to make service delivery possible, to make sure that the resources necessary to deliver quality and safe care to patients are at the disposal of nursing personnel. We have not focused on those areas. And one of the areas that was part of the health sector reform was the area of national health insurance system. That was supposed to come on. Current national insurance system, the NIS, was supposed to evolve to a national health insurance system where persons who have the capabilities to pay into this national health insurance fund will pay, and thereby the health system will draw down on these reserves from time to time, and we won't have to rely 100% on budgetary government allocations. We would
and it's interesting, Mr. Stuart, you speak about those resources, but one of the resources that we don't have at this point in time is time. You spoke about time to time. So definitely, hopefully, there's a conversation that we're able to continue. But in terms of activities that you're having on the 12th and past, I'm sure that individuals can either go to the TTRNA, this is on Instagram, or TTRNA, Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, on Facebook for more activities. But thank you very much, Idi Stuart, the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, for this conversation, looking at our nurses, our future. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.